Welcome to the opening line report. We've been off a couple weeks because Christmas got in the way there. And hey, we wanted to take some time for the holidays. We are back. It is 2024, and we are looking ahead to week 18 of the NFL season. It still feels weird to say that, but yes, there is a week 18. The games count, and we're going to bet on them. So let's bring in the betting experts here. We got my man Monotone Football. We got my man AC Analytics Capper. What is going on, guys? Let's dive right in. Let's not waste any time here. Let's go to what I think is the game of the week. The Bills at Miami. They are 3-point favorites heading down to Miami because they've got a lot more on the line here. The Bills at minus 166 on the money line. The Dolphins at plus 140 and the total at 50.5. So is it as simple as the Bills need to kind of win this thing to get in the playoffs and not have to worry about all the other things falling in line here? Blindly bet the Bills because they're the ones that are going to be trying? Because the Dolphins have been banged up here. They might want to just rest their guys and get ready for the postseason. AC, let's start with you here. How do you read this game?
Yeah, I guess first and foremost, Happy New Year's, everybody. Glad to be on. I would say this. I used to play this team has, all the marbles, all the chips on the table, and they need to win to get in the playoffs, like that type of, read. And I used to, a few years ago, I would blindly bet those teams, especially against teams that don't have anything to play for. They're going to sit out there, starting quarterback, their starting wide receiver, whatever the case may be. But it's never that simple. It's just never that simple. And I think that's why there are lines here that are super, super sharp. I would say Buffalo is the read, but I'm not super confident on this one. If anything, if there's a team that has a lot to play for and a team that doesn't have anything to play for, I lean the under in those games more than anything. So I lean the under here at 49.5. It's low for a reason. But heading into this game, Buffalo is hot. They've won 4 straight. If they win this game, they win the division. Miami is struggling. Like you mentioned, they are also a little injured. They're only 2-2 in their last 4 games. And if you guys remember this head-to-head matchup, Miami got completely dominated in Buffalo earlier in the year. So Buffalo might have their number, but I like the under a lot more.
Now, Stu, before we head to you for your opinion on this game, I just want to go through the playoff scenario here for Buffalo. Buffalo clinches a playoff berth with a win or tie, Pittsburgh loss or tie, Jacksonville loss or tie, or a Houston-Indy tie. So I like to go through these because they're so convoluted and they're just fun to go over because a lot of these things are just clearly not going to happen. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a Week 18 tie, but I'd be shocked. Stu, what's your read here?
Yeah, I would love a Week 18 tie. That would be hilarious. Just to complicate this whole thing even more, let's get a Colts in here randomly somehow. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, Miami does have something to play for. They want to wrap up this division as much as the Bills. But like you guys mentioned, I mean, it's injury after injury. I mean, Phillips obviously hit them earlier. Now losing Chubb for the rest of the season on that defensive line is absolutely huge. And a lot of people give credit to the Miami offense, as that's the heart and soul of this team. Every advanced stat has been saying that the Miami defense has actually been what's trending up over the last couple weeks. And to see them just take hit after hit is very tough. And like AC mentioned, we saw what happened when they faced this Buffalo offense a little bit earlier in the year. Buffalo has only gotten better since that point. It's not even a motivational thing for me. I think Buffalo's the better team here. I've been backing Buffalo a lot over these last couple weeks. They put together a very impressive run to even get where they are right now, right? There was a point where we were thinking, is Buffalo even going to make the playoffs, right? And now this is a team that's obviously rounded back into form. Josh Allen looks like an MVP again, and I think it's just a good idea to keep riding with Buffalo.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one here, Stu. I just think that they're the better team right now, and Miami's banged up. It's kind of like the peaking at the right time theory. It's funny because the Bills, when they weren't peaking, when they were in that valley, they were still putting up a ton of points, and Josh Allen was just turning the ball over a ton. But it seems like with this OC change and everyone getting kind of healthy and on the same page at the right time here, Buffalo is going to be a scary team for teams in the AFC here in the postseason. Let's talk about the best team in the American Football Conference, the Ravens. They are 4-point favorites at home against the Steelers. You can get the Steelers on the money line at minus 192 and the Ravens at plus 160. I'm going to have to double check those odds here. And a total of 37. So look, you have the Steelers here that need to win to get into the postseason. Here are their playoff scenarios. They get in if they win and Buffalo loses, win and Jacksonville loses, win and Houston and Indy tie, or Pittsburgh ties, Jacksonville loses, Houston, Indy doesn't end in a tie, or Jacksonville loses, Denver wins, and Houston and Indy doesn't end in a tie. So I hope you guys were all keeping track of that. Stu, why don't you give us your read here on how you're betting this game? Obviously, the Steelers need it a lot more than the Ravens. The Ravens just need health right now to continue as they roll into the postseason. What's your read here in the AFC North?
Yeah, I mean, the Ravens obviously have done business. They've locked in what they need to lock in, and now they're just cruising till the end of the season. While Pittsburgh is obviously, like you said, the team still playing for some semblance of playoff hopes. The problem is, I mean, even with all that on the line, even against like the Ravens, like I don't even want to bet against the Ravens in the preseason, guys. Like this is such a well-coached team. It's such a deep squad. Like even out here playing their backups, do I really want to lay Mason Rudolph as a favorite? I mean, he's surprisingly been better than like Mitchell Trubisky, which I guess it is an accomplishment, right? But at the end of the day, to me, this game kind of screams like a no bet or like an under. Like at that 37 number, I don't see either team scoring points. If Pittsburgh does win this game, which obviously the spread and the money line is telling us that they likely should, it's probably going to be a really slow, ugly game. Look how Tomlin has won his game so far this year. And now we got Baltimore, resting guys, not playing their A1 offense out there. For me, this just screams like an under and stay away from everything else.
Yep, for me, this is another underplay, a team that has everything to play for, another team that's already have everything locked up. Ravens have the number 1 overall seed locked up. Ravens have the MVP locked up in Lamar Jackson. There's no point of playing him. Maybe he goes a quarter, maybe he goes a half, but I like the under here. First half under, maybe full game under, something like that. But you're right. The Steelers, even with a motivated, with everything on the line, that offense outside of last week has been struggling a ton. And I know they made a change at offensive coordinator, but they still don't have all their pieces. I think the most important thing with this new offensive coordinator is he's getting the ball to their playmakers a lot more. Najee Harris is getting a lot more run, which is always good. So I actually think Pittsburgh will cover the 4, but it's going to be something ugly like a 13-0, 13-3 type game because the Baltimore Ravens aren't going to be doing anything.
Makes sense, right? Like don't give your opponent in the playoffs the freshest film to work with here. Plus, you'll want to rest your guys. Like don't get in the way of something here. That you have going that's going great. AC, one more thing here before
I will say something though. This might be a bad thing for Baltimore because they have the first week of the playoffs as a bye, and if they're not going to play this week either, they might be rusty by the time they start. By the time the divisional series happens 3 weeks from now, so that's something that you want to keep in mind when you're looking to the playoffs and the Ravens moving forward.
So you're thinking maybe that second round matchup when the Ravens finish up with their bye, we're looking at maybe a close game. So something like that. You're not predicting an upset per se here, but something that could be a closer game in the second round than people might expect.
Yeah, just something, maybe a first half where they're rusty, maybe an under there, or maybe first half on the spread for the other team. Again, we are not going to know what the matchups are going to be at this point, but yes, potentially, it's going to be probably the number 1 story in Baltimore that entire week, right? Rust versus rest. And sometimes rust is a real thing, especially if you're going to have an offense that has been clicking so efficiently and so awesome now for the last month or so. And if they take basically 3 weeks off, that's tough.
Yeah, the last 2 weeks for them have been truly, truly iconic stuff from this new and improved Ravens offense here. So really, really excited to watch them go through this postseason. Let's take a look at the AFC South here. The Houston Texans. Who'd have thunk it that we'd be talking about them with a playoff spot on the line here as a 1-point dog heading to Indy, another team that you probably didn't expect early in the season to be in this conversation. The Colts at minus 115, the Texans at minus 105, and the total at 47.5. So minus odds for both of these teams as you look at the game in Indianapolis. Let's go through the playoff scenarios here quick. The Texans can win the AFC South if they win and Jacksonville loses or ties, and they clinch a playoff berth if they win or they tie, Jacksonville loses, and Pittsburgh loses or ties. And the Colts can clinch the AFC South title if they win and Jacksonville loses or ties, or if they tie and Jacksonville loses. So imagine winning the division on a tie and another team loss. It can happen. So, Stu, why don't you kick us off here in the AFC South? What do you got?
I'm excited. This Colts team has been like an anomaly this year. Like, I don't know how they keep winning games. After Richardson went down, it would have been fair to assess, the rest of the season as, let some young guys play, see what happens. But no, this is a team that fights every week. They're giving every team a run for their money right here. I like the over in this game. I like the over. CJ Stroud, I think, could be playing with us three as the wide receivers, and I think he would still somehow generate 250 passing yards. Luckily, he does not have to do that. Nico Collins is a guy we'll definitely be looking at in the prop market. It feels like all of his wide receivers keep on getting injured every week, but at the end of the day, like I said, if it's just us three out there, I think CJ would make something happen. And when you look at this Indianapolis defense, right, they've gotten a lot better at protecting the run over the last couple weeks. They got Stewart back, their best defensive tackle right there, a little bit of an under-radar thing. A lot of people continue to bet the rushing overs against them. I probably wouldn't recommend doing that. Guess what? Houston's a very bad rushing team. They want to be a good rushing team, but they're not. Devin Singletary and Dameon Pierce are not cutting it. So I like matchups where Houston actually has to go up against a slightly better run defense because it's going to force them into doing something that they're actually better at, which is passing the ball right here. It's one of the most efficient passing offenses in the league. Oh my God, guys, look at that Indianapolis secondary. They're down everyone. It was not good before. They lost Kenny Moore, who was not available last week. Guys, Devontae Adams was playing with Aiden O'Connell and still managed 13 catches for 100-something yards and 2 touchdowns. I ended up cashing the 10 catches and the 2 touchdowns in that game because there's nobody in the secondary. It's not like a hard thing to figure out right there. It's the same thing here. That's why I'm going right back to Nico Collins. I'm going back to whatever other healthy wide receiver they have because at the end of the day, I just don't believe Indianapolis can cover in the secondary. I think they can fight on offense, scrappy team. That's why I'm just going to go to the over, bet some player props, and let the money come in.
Stu, I do like the over in this game as well. That's a great look and a great read in terms of Houston being better at throwing the ball than running the ball. But as far as the side is concerned, I like the Colts, whether it's money line or the -1, excuse me, or the -1.5. I think Indy gets it done at home, and I think Gardner Minshew really has his team believing. So give me the Colts. Sorry, Tommy, I could get some water.
No worries at all there, AC. And look, I think that Gardner Minshew is the best backup quarterback in the NFL now. I mean, we saw what he did last season in Philly and now what he's done this season with the Colts. So I'm glad that Gardner Minshew is seemingly going to be in our life here for the next few years because these guys tend to keep getting NFL contracts. So I'm pumped about that. I like to see that guy with the mullet and the mustache just grind away.
Yeah, and I just want to say, too, to AC's point right there, like, I don't even have anything against the Colts. I kind of agree that the motivational factor, the way this team is playing, I think Steichen has already established himself as probably one of the most underrated coaches in football. I know he's immediately entered that Coach of the Year discussion in his first season. So I really don't have anything against the Colts in this one. I think it's going to be a fun matchup. But I think, I'm glad we're on the same page with the over right there. And I think this I think what we're all saying is this going to be a really entertaining game. Like no matter what, obviously we know there's a couple good ones this week. We know the star of the show is that, Bills matchup. But at the end of the day, I think everyone's going to want to have this one on the big screen this week.
So let's take a look at the next AFC South matchup here. The Jaguars heading to Tennessee. You can get the Jags as a 5-point favorite heading into the Titans' home turf here. Jacksonville at minus 218 on the money line, Tennessee at plus 180, and a total of 39.5. Obviously, Jacksonville has been a very weird team this year. They've had moments where they've looked really good. Now they're dealing with injuries. They've just been rolling Trevor Lawrence onto the field with all sorts of injuries, and it finally caught up to them. And now here they are, 5-point favorites heading into Tennessee. But look, I wouldn't be betting on Jacksonville these days. I'm curious where you sit on this, Stu. And to go over the playoff scenarios here, Jacksonville clinches the AFC South Division title with a win or tie and an Indy-Houston tie. So if we get 2 ties in the AFC South, that would be incredible. And then we also get Jacksonville clinching a playoff berth with a tie, a Pittsburgh loss or tie, or Pittsburgh losing, Denver losing or tying, and Houston doesn't end in a tie. Houston-Indy does not end in a tie here. So let's welcome our friend AC back into the broadcast here. I hope you got some water there, buddy. And let's start here with you, Stu. What do you think is going to happen here in Tennessee? How are you betting this one? What the hell do we do with the Jags?
Yeah, I mean, as a Jacksonville kind of downer this season, it's been good for the most part. But then at the end of the year, I still look and I still realize this is somehow a team in playoff contention, despite the fact that they really haven't looked like a playoff team more than maybe outside of one game so far this year, right? And I mean, they took care of business against Tennessee before. Tennessee is this is a brutal team, man. I mean, the quarterback play, it's switching every week between Levis and Tannehill. Levis gets injured. I don't know who's the star. This Tennessee offense is brutal, man. Derrick Henry is I don't want to use the W word, the washed word out here, but it's been a rough stretch. I mean, it's a guy that's unbettable at this point. Tajee Spears is getting 50% of snaps at times. I don't want to mess with Tennessee whatsoever. And Jacksonville actually has stakes right here. They're actually trying to make that postseason. So, I mean, I'm probably not going to bet Jacksonville, but I think that's kind of clearly the side you want to go to if you're a money line parlay kind of guy and there's another favorite on the slate that you like. That's probably the way I'd attack it. As you can see, 5 is a terrible teaser number. It's kind of sitting at this ugly dead zone, and that kind of describes this game. It's just an ugly dead zone game for me. So, I mean, I like the Jacksonville Jags to win it, but I don't plan on watching this one.
Yeah, for me, I don't think I'm going to touch the side either, but I do think it's Jacksonville or nothing. There's just no way you can bet the Tennessee Titans, even with all the value right now in Tennessee. They've lost 3 in a row. They haven't covered in a month. Stu mentioned their offense is struggling really, really bad. Not only are they changing quarterbacks week to week, they're changing quarterbacks in game, right? And then the only way Derrick Henry can score right now is by throwing a football, right? So it's just really, really bad vibes in Tennessee. The weather is not going to be too bad. It's going to have right now it's early, but it's predicted to have some crosswinds there, which I think is going to lend to the under. If you don't want to do under full game, I would do Tennessee team total under because there's no way you can back that offense right now.
And one thing that you guys have kind of touched on without specifically touching on, the whole Mike Vrabel situation is not good right now. There's all sorts of reporting that there's strife inside that building about who's going to be in charge and his contract is up and they don't like how things are running behind the scenes, who gets say here. Vrabel might be the next head coach here in New England in a few weeks. So who the hell knows? That probably doesn't help either. So even though the Jags are this kind of tumultuous team as far as injuries and looking good and looking bad, I mean, I'm not going to touch them, but I could totally see what you're saying here, Stu. If you're going to throw a team in a money line parlay, that's probably the side that you're going to want to stick to. Let's go to a matchup of 2 teams that you probably didn't think early in the season would be a game that was worth talking about here. Seattle coming in with pretty high expectations. They're now fighting for their playoff lives against an Arizona team that we all thought was going to be by far the worst team in the NFL. That's not the case. They are scrappy. We saw them do what they did to Philly. I know we have two guys that aren't Philly believers on this broadcast here, so they weren't surprised by what Arizona did this past weekend. But hey, Arizona is out here as a 3-point dog at home against the Seahawks fighting for their playoff lives. The Seattle Seahawks are at minus 162 on the money line. You can get the Cardinals at plus 136 and a total of 48. And let's take a look at what Seattle's playoff odds are here. Not playoff odds, but playoff scenarios here. They get in if they win and Green Bay loses or ties. They tie, Green Bay loses, or Tampa Bay loses or ties. And they can also get in if they tie, Green Bay loses, or New Orleans loses or ties. Did you guys all get that? Could you recite that for me perfectly? AC, why don't we kick things off with you here? What's your read here as Seattle looking to try and get in against a scrappy Arizona team?
Yeah, I'm going to like Seattle in this one. I think this is a game where I feel pretty comfortable with a team with a lot on the line versus a team with nothing. Also, there's some draft implications for the Cardinals as well. So I like Seattle here, and we know Pete Carroll owns Seattle. I think he's won 4 or 5 in a row outright against this team. So I like Seattle going on the road. Even though this is a divisional game, you kind of value on the home dog in this case. But I think Seattle, with everything they have going on, I think with everything that's on the line, and coming off a really, really poor performance against the Steelers, 23-30. Giving up 30 points to the Steelers is just bad. So I like them to bounce back defensively, and I like them, again, another game where I would lean towards the under, but I like Seattle more.
Yeah, this is crazy. I mean, shout out to Arizona again, and going into Philly, out coaching his old coach, and then getting the win right there. That was very fun for me to watch. And Kyler Murray, a guy that if all my best ball teams weren't already dead, he'd be a real savior out here in these last couple weeks. He's been a lot of fun, man. It definitely is an interesting conversation that kind of mirrors the Justin Fields conversation of what do these teams that are in bad spots with expensive quarterbacks kind of do you rebuild or do you stick with their guy? And I think Kyler playing this well these last couple of weeks, I think makes that a lot less of a conversation. So I'm very curious to see this one. Seattle is almost so obvious at 3 that I don't want to play it. Like, they're the team with something on the line. When everybody in the world looks at this game, they're flipping through, they're going, Seattle's only a 3. Okay, that seems pretty easy, and they're going to go lock that in. And for me, those are never the games I feel super comfortable about. Seattle's just trending in the wrong direction. I mean, all the things that they do well, right? That pass defense, like you said, it's supposed to be one of the best cornerback groups in the country, right? And now we just allowed Mason Rudolph to destroy you a week ago. Like, I don't know what the deal is right there. It seems like if you're a wide receiver that can beat press coverage, then you can beat this team, and then you're not an elite secondary anymore. So for me, I'm very curious to see how this one plays out. I don't plan on betting Seattle at the moment, though. It just seems so obvious to me. Like, you look at that number and it's like, of course, with something on the line, Seattle wins. But I do have Seattle futures. I got some very good, like, minus 160s, minus 170s to make the playoffs when the rest of the market was like 220, something like that. So I do hope they win this game very badly, but I already have some money on it, so I won't be betting it again.
There you go. All right, let's go to the NFC North here. All sorts of playoff implications with both matchups here. We have the Vikings at +5 heading to Detroit. You can get the Lions in the money line at minus 238 and the Vikings at plus 195 at a total of 46. And then you have the Bears as a 3-point dog heading to Lambeau Field. Packers on the money line at minus 170. Chicago at plus 142 and a total of 44. So I'll give you guys the floor here. You can pick which game you want to hit on here. Again, all sorts of scenarios can happen here. Divisions and, that's wrapped up with the Lions. But you got the Bears with their situation with Justin Fields. He's been looking great the last few weeks. So it's no gimme that they're going to just lose to the Packers and the Packers are going to get in the playoffs here. And then you have the Vikings fighting for their playoff lives along with the Packers, and the Lions looking to keep things going in the right direction here as they head into the postseason. So all sorts of stuff in the mix here. AC, why don't you kick us off? What are you looking at here in the NFC North?
Yeah, I see both games very similarly to how Stu saw the Seattle game. I think Detroit -5 looks way too easy. Minnesota, I don't even know why they threw out the quarterback, in the first half this past weekend. But Minnesota looks really bad. Even if they were to start Nick Mullins, he's a turnover machine. It seems too easy for me. So that's a game where I'm going to lay off. Similar in that respect is the Packers. I mean, the Packers and Jordan Love, he's been playing so much better, and he's only a 3-point favorite at home in Lambeau against a team where Green Bay just dominates, right, the last 10, 15 years. So to me, both games seem a little fishy, a little easy. If anything, I'm probably going to jump in both games at half, especially if Green Bay's down or Detroit's down, something like that. But Stu, I would love to hear your analysis on these two.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with your Lions Vikings take. I won't be touching that game either. The 5, once again, is a clear. By the way, if you're not an NFL bettor, key numbers are really important. 7 and 3 are the biggest key numbers. Obviously, 5 is like that dead zone, right, where the books almost don't know what to do. If you put a 6, it's going to get bet down. If you put a 4, it's going to get bet up. So they just kind of leave it there, right? And for me, I agree with AC. It's just like a live betting opportunity could be really good here, but it's going to be a pass. The other game, I'm in on Green Bay, guys. I'm in. I think I drank the Kool-Aid. Jordan Love's been so good recently. And what does it for me right here is Chicago's underrated. I'll give them that. This defense, they've actually turned it around. There's a big reason why Eberflus is going to be back next year. That's what the reports are right now. You may not agree with it. That's fine. But you do have to respect what they've done on the defensive side of the ball. Arguably, best run defense in football, if not a top 3 run defense since maybe week 6. And then the secondary is finally coming into form as well. The biggest thing, though, I don't care how elite your run defense is right now against this version of the Packers, because the Packers are not looking to go out there and run the ball, right? The pass rate over expectation has spiked over these last couple weeks. Aaron Jones is back now. That's good news. Let's get him going in the receiving game a little bit more. He's been a great rusher over these last couple weeks. But like I said, this is a brutal matchup. I think they're going to come out with a pass-heavy game script. I'm excited to let Jordan Love continue to throw the ball around. So I think this is going to be a fun game. I think the over is in play. I don't know if I'm going to get to the over right now, but what I do know is I will definitely be on the Packers this week.
All right, let's go over the scenarios for those teams too before we wrap up here, just because they are ridiculous and fun to go over. Green Bay clinches a playoff berth if they win or they tie, Seattle loses or ties, or New Orleans loses or ties, or they tie, Seattle loses and Tampa Bay loses, or they tie, Seattle ties, Tampa Bay loses or ties, or Minnesota loses or ties, Seattle loses and Tampa Bay loses, or Minnesota loses or ties, Seattle loses and New Orleans loses. And the Vikings get in if they win, Green Bay loses, Seattle loses, and Tampa Bay loses, or they win, Green Bay loses, Seattle loses, or the Saints lose. Did I get that all right? Can you guys check my work on that? Yeah.
You're good.
Okay.
100%.
Cool. All right. So that is going to do it for our friend AC. Before we let you go here, quick thought on Texas losing to our guys Washington last night. You're a Texas-based guy. Figure you got some Longhorn thoughts here. I don't know if you're a Longhorn fan, but I'm sure you got some Longhorn fans in your life here, AC. Quick thought on last night's craziness at the end there.
Yeah, I do. I do have a ton of Longhorn fans in my life. My wife went to Texas, but I was on Washington. I think if the game stayed at 4, I would have been a lot more comfortable with Texas there. But when it moved back down to 3.5, and then even though he's, I think, a 6 or 7 year senior, that's a huge advantage for Washington in these tight big games, and they've been winning close games all year. So I liked Washington, and I'm glad it went out that way. I'm sad for my Longhorn fans because the title game was going to be in Houston. That was basically going to be a home game for Texas. But this allows Texas to take the next step next year as well.
It feels like Texas sports is having like a renaissance here, right? You had the Stars in the
Finally
Stanley Cup Western Conference Finals. You had the Rangers winning a World Series. The Cowboys are really good. And then obviously Texas is back, folks. And then you have, the teams over in Houston. The Rockets are better than we all thought they were going to be. You have the Astros still doing their thing. And look, the Spurs have Wembanyama. And don't forget the Mavs also look good this season with Luka. So, look, I don't know. Texas is back on the map here, folks, right? Are we all in on Texas sports here?
As a Dallas native, I would want one more title before I can say that. So
I'm not calling you Title Town just yet here.
Okay? I need either the Cowboys.
We're still Title Town up here in Boston.
Or the Stars. Okay? Yeah, Title Town is still up there, unfortunately.
Well, I will say, before we get out of here, AC, can we get a finals prediction? A real quick, nothing to hold you to officially, just a championship prediction. Who ends up taking it? Michigan?
In college football?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Michigan. Yeah,
okay.
Michigan.
I'm glad to hear. I see a lot of Washington love on my timeline, and I like Michigan as well. I don't see how you watch those games and you don't think that Michigan's going to have 500 rushing yards in this.
Yeah, I think the question is, will the Harbaughs have both the Super Bowl and the national title? That's how good they are right now.
That there's some sort of Harbaugh futures parlay situation that someone needs to get on here. That's good stuff. Sportsbooks, take note. That's a good promotion for you. All right, AC, thank you, buddy. We'll talk to you next week. All right, Stu, let's hit your early prop leans for week 18 here. The final week of the season, some weird stuff can happen, right? Weird guys playing, unmotivated teams, motivated teams. So where can people take advantage here as they look at the final week of the regular season?
Yeah, one spot I like a lot. We'll start out weird already. Let's go Will Anderson on the defensive side of the ball to get a sack. This is a guy that is fighting for Rookie of the Year right now. I got a little bit of money there at 600, 700. It's down to 400 now. I still don't hate it. He probably won't win it, but I mean, look what he's doing over here. He's been absolutely spectacular. If there is one weakness, obviously, to Gardner Minshew, he takes sacks at an above average rate. He's always done that. He's a little bit mobile. He makes things happen sometimes, and the other times you get sacked right there. And for me, the level Anderson's been playing at recently, I mean, I think we're going to get it at plus money once again. It's been plus money a ton recently. A guy that, like I said, he's fine for Rookie of the Year. You get a little extra added incentive right there. And yeah, it's a huge game for the playoffs. A lot of people are going to be watching. I think that is one to go to. Another one, we're going over to Pittsburgh. George Pickens, guys, for the first time in his career last week, he had a higher receiving yards line than his teammate Deontay Johnson when they were both healthy. There's a shift right here. Mason Rudolph has a number one wide receiver, and his name is George Pickens. That's his guy. If you've watched any of these games so far, 1,000% his guy, leading the team in target share so far with Rudolph. I'm going to bet on him to continue to win it. Like we said, that game is a little bit disgusting. I don't want to have many bets on that game, but what I do think is that Rudolph is going to keep feeding his guy, especially if they have any hope of the playoff right here. So I think Pickens is going to be a guy you get a good number on. Finally, we'll go back to the Texans one more time. CJ Stroud, passing yards. Let's end the season right. Like I said earlier, I love that it's a tough rushing matchup. I don't really have much faith in them to establish the run. I think we probably see, 15, 16 total running back carries, which would be down from like their average of 25. So 8 less carries, 8 more throws. Let's just keep pumping the rock downfield. The secondary can't cover anybody. I have no faith in the Colts to slow down the passing attack. I think we see a high-paced game, and I think CJ Stroud ends the way he started it, in style.
There you go. So prop leans for our guy Stu here. And if we're just going to be taking some victory laps type thing here towards the end of the season, I haven't really mentioned this yet. I did, and I think week 1 or week 2, tell people to get on the Lamar Jackson MVP train when he was at like plus 1,800 to win the award. So I did, in fact, bet on Lamar Jackson to win MVP at those odds. So you're welcome. And I hope a lot of people tailed me there. They probably didn't, but look, I sometimes know things. I bring the experts on to talk to me, but I sometimes can, get a few dubs there for myself. So there you go. All right. That's going to do it for week 18 of the opening line report here. You guys got to go ahead and download OddsTrader. It's on the App Store. It's in the Google Play Store. OddsTrader.com. It is the best in class predictive sports betting AI in the business. We help you make money as a bettor. Use the predictions, listen to what we have to say and use your own judgment and bet responsibly. And you know what? You're going to make money. That's just how it works here. So download OddsTrader. It's going to help you be a better bettor. We're going to see you guys on Sunday after the final game concludes here of Week 18 to take a look at Wild Card Weekend, or what do they call it now? Super Wild Card Weekend? Like, why do we have to add in the super there? I've never understand that. But that's going to do it. I'm Tommy FreezePops. That's Stu. And we will talk to you guys next week.